Thank you to those of you who have been able to join us, as we wouldn't be able to conduct this experiential learning program without you. Let's get started.
All right, with that, just to share that the format today will be that each student presents. After the student presents, we will go ahead and have open up a question from their internship host site. If there's not a question from the internship host site, then we'll go over to our academic team. The way that we go ahead and ask questions is if you could go ahead and raise your hand, that'd be fantastic. I'll go ahead and call and unmute you. If there isn't a question, again, that goes over to the academic team, we will have open Q&A at the end of all of our presentations. And so if you don't get a chance to ask a question of the student, you can go ahead and hold on to that question, and we'll go ahead and have time for that after all the presentations are done. All right, and so with that, our first student that will be starting us off today is Kay Sosin, who interned with the UC Student Association.
Hello, everyone. Let me just pull up my poster. All right. In 2021 alone, 80,000 Americans died from opioid overdose. Between 2020 and 2021, there was a 22% increase in the rate of opioid overdose deaths attributed to synthetic opioids, driven mainly by fentanyl. On January 1st, 2023, Senate Bill 367 went into effect, requesting the UCs to comply with providing Narcan and overdose prevention training on campus. Considering these statistics and the move by the state legislature to improve opioid overdose prevention at universities, I aimed the research at asking what overdose resources exist currently at UC campuses. I hypothesized that due to their status as public universities in the same system, the UCs would have equitable resources at their campuses. In order to evaluate this, I performed a program evaluation using web-based information gathering from campus affiliated groups, including resources, services, and student organizations. The criteria used for the evaluation uses a harm reduction model from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. Findings for this research found that UCSB was the most comprehensive program, meeting all 8 of the criteria as well as the highest weighted score. On the other hand, UC Merced was the least comprehensive with only 3 of the 8 criteria. This finding suggests that the UCs were not equitable in their resources offered. Despite Senate Bill 367 only requesting the UC to provide Narcan, all the UCs did have at least 1 access point. However, it should be also noted that student organizations were significant in closing gaps for Narcan, fentanyl test strips, and facilitated overdose training, which otherwise would not be accessible to UCI, UCR, UCLA, and UCSD. Although I do recognize web-based information collection may not be entirely reflective of the resources available, this aspect of my research may suggest that the absence of a resource may be related to its inaccessibility for students to find through an internet search. Inaccessibility is just as detrimental to the lack of a resource altogether. In a future study, I would want to evaluate how non-UC affiliated local organizations may also influence resources available to the campus community. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Kay, for the great presentation. And if there's a question from the internship host site, UC Student Association. All right, then if not, oh, Aaliyah.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to say one, wonderful presentation, and I've loved having Kay as an intern. And then 2, I'm wondering why you think that UCSB had more resources than all the other ones, or fulfilled the criteria better.
Yes, so since I used a web-based information gathering, I was also looking at what kind of resources were available to from student organizations, resources and services. So I was looking at everything at a holistic view as a campus affiliate. And UCSB actually had everything from student organizations to actual resources. I found that also as well, that they were the most comprehensive and where their information was being stored. So it was all very accessible. So I think that also had a very direct influence on the score. But they actually did abide by the harm reduction model that was shared from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration the most. And they were the best in having a multi-resource approach, as well as having something that I think should be also implemented in looking at harm reduction is having a diverse set of resources available to also adequately respond to the goals of a student. So UCSB, like one big thing they had was sober living, which sobriety might be very important for some individuals, but not really a realistic goal for others. But having educated decision-making and also autonomy for students had like the biggest impact. And they had the most comprehensive approach to making sure that students that wanted to pursue sobriety were adequately addressed, but also students that were either curious or were looking for like management strategies also were accounted for as well. So I think that's why that comprehensive score actually showed them as meeting all 8 criteria, and then also on the deeper evaluation, having way more comprehensiveness than the other UCs.
Okay, thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Kay, for that response and great presentation. And thank you so much, Aaliyah, for that question, as well as for hosting Kay this term. And so our next student today is Cynthia Weber, who interned with the Office of California State Senator Scott Wiener.
Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, looks great.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Today, I will be presenting my research on teacher diversity in education. There's an immense demographic mismatch between teachers and students, with teachers being overwhelmingly white and the K-12 student body being an increasingly diverse group. According to data from the California Department of Education during the 2018 to 2019 school year, 61% of California teachers were white, compared to a mere 23% of California's student population. The educational achievement gap, referring to disparities in student success between groups of students, is a highly contentious topic with many different proposed solutions. Today, I will assess if ensuring teacher diversity within the teaching profession provides a possible solution to closing this gap. My research focuses on teacher and student demographics from California's 37 largest counties during the 2018 to 2019 school year. I'm predicting that increased teacher diversity, measured by a higher percentage of minority teachers, will lead to higher graduation rates for the corresponding minority group. I focus my research specifically on Latinx students, as they constitute over 50% of California's student body and are the largest minority group in California by far. I found that there is a slight positive correlation between high school graduation rates and teacher diversity for Latinx students. However, when accounting for poverty levels by county, the strength of this correlation does weaken. Despite this, I believe that increasing teacher diversity should be considered one strategy in a toolbox of possible solutions to closing the achievement gap. Thank you.
All right, fantastic presentation, Cynthia. And there is a question from our internship host site, Krista Pfefferkorn.
Hi. I was wondering, when looking at this data, did you also see any correlation between teacher experience and how many years teachers have been teaching and graduation rate data?
No, so I actually didn't take that into account. That would be another great factor to consider, definitely. I was looking primarily at poverty levels, as I thought that that would most be the strongest other influencing factor in graduation rates, but not reflected on this poster. I did take into account student to teacher ratio, so just how many teachers there were per students by county, as well as the parental education levels. But again, I thought that poverty would be the most influential in this, so that's why I decided to focus on that for my research.
Okay, thanks.
Great,
Good
thank you
job.
so
We
much.
love having Cynthia in our office.
Oh, great. Thank you for Krista. So thank you, Krista, for the question and for hosting Cynthia this term. And thank you so much, Cynthia, for your great presentation today and responding to that question.
Thank you.
Thank you. So our next student today is Ferris Barakat, who interned with the Office of California State Governor Gavin Newsom's office.
Good morning. Can you see my screen?
Yes, looks great, Ferris.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Ferris Barakat. I'm a student from UC Davis. So as a student who directly benefits from the University of California UC system, I am deeply invested in understanding. I'm deeply invested in understanding the consequences of state funding. I'm sorry, can I repeat? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, you're totally fine, Ferris. You can go ahead and start from the beginning there.
All right. All right. So as a student who benefits directly from the University of California UC system, I'm deeply invested in understanding the impact of state funding on graduation rates and the quality of education. It's essential to investigate the potential consequences of state funding on the performance of students so we can make informed decisions about allocating resources and improving educational outcome. I hypothesized that the higher the state funding a particular school receives, the higher the graduation rate, because the school will be able to invest in resources and programs to support students to succeed academically. So I collected data from the UC Office of the President and the state budget websites to find out how much each UC campus receives in state funding per student. So I divided the amount of state funding by the population size for the year of 2018-2019. And the results were that the top 3 schools that receive the highest state funding do not necessarily have the highest graduation rates. In fact, the UC school that receives the highest state funding, which is UC Merced, has the lowest graduation rate at approximately 64%. Since I couldn't detect any pattern on the impact of state funding, I wanted to understand the impact of funding in general on the performance of students by comparing the overall budget of each UC campus to their GPA scores for the year of 2018-2019. And I found that the top 3 schools that have the largest budgets also have the highest GPA scores, and the schools that have the smallest budgets tend to have lower GPA scores. So if my study is true, then it may suggest that state funding is not the main factor in driving graduation rates. And instead, we should shift our focus on factors such as student demographics, academic resources, and institutional policies to improve graduation rates and academic performance. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Ferris, for a great presentation. And if there is a question from the internship host site. And then if not, over to our academic team. All right, Dr. Quila.
Hi, first, thank you for the presentation. I was just wondering, did you also look at the relationship between UC budgets and graduation rates as well?
I did not look at this relationship. That would be a good idea.
Yeah.
Yes.
What do you think you would find if you kind of looked at that, do you think?
I'm looking at the 2 tables that I have. And there could be a slight correlation between graduation rates and the overall budget.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, great. Thank you, Dr. Quila, for the question, and thank you, Ferris, for the response and a great presentation today. And so our next student that will be presenting is Emma Clough, who interned with the Office of California State Governor Gavin Newsom's office.
Can everybody see my poster okay?
Yep, looks great, Emma.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Emma Clough, and I am a 3rd-year student at UC Davis. For many American students, the idea of getting an education and being criminalized has become one and the same. One of the most significant issues in the public education system is its concerningly strong link with the criminal justice system. This link, otherwise known as the school to prison pipeline, essentially describes the argument the American education system serves as a feeder to the American juvenile justice systems. My research sought to answer the question, can we predict youth incarceration rates of a given state based on the characteristics of a specific state? Based on past research, stricter schools lead to higher juvenile delinquency. Therefore, I hypothesize this relationship is stronger in schools that serve higher concentrations of students of color and low-income students. I conducted an analysis comparing K through 12 student populations in 50 states, utilizing data from the 2018 US Census and 2018 US Department of Justice, while adjusting each of the following variables for population sizes, measuring per capita by 10,000. Both figures 3 and 4 reflect an independent variable of combined suspension and expulsion rates with a dependent variable of number of juvenile offenders. However, each one reflects either an interaction with level of diversity, which is measured by number of non-white students exhibited in figure 3, or level of poverty measured by number of students below a poverty line in a given state exhibited in figure 4. According to my findings, schools with higher concentrations of students of color and students experiencing poverty increased the number of juvenile offenders. However, all two of the independent variables establish a weak correlation with the dependent variable, so a concrete conclusion cannot be made. I propose that going forward, states continue to better initiatives to aid at-risk students, and that future research should seek better solutions to reduce the prevalence of the school to prison pipeline overall. Thank you all for listening.
Great, fantastic presentation, Emma. And then if you could go ahead and just reshare, yeah, perfect, thank you. And if there's a question from the internship host site. And then if not, over to our academic team. All right, Dr. Quila.
Hi, Emma. Thank you for this nice presentation. I was just kind of curious on, your figure 3 and 4. It looks like there's kind of 3 states that have like particularly high juvenile offender rates. I was just wondering if you happen to know what those states were, or why that might be in those areas or anything like that.
Yeah, so Alaska was the one that was the highest outlier, and then also Nevada had a particularly high, Nebraska, and as well as Pennsylvania. And I found that a lot of times the ones with the highest, I found that there was a higher correlation with more diversity. However, within those states, there is kind of like one would say, not as an advanced kind of view on the criminal juvenile justice system. In a lot of the other states, there might be like more political kind of push to kind of alter that kind of system. And so maybe in future research, I would kind of focus more on maybe like political ideologies and stuff within a given state.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Emma, for that great presentation and for responding to that question. And thank you, Dr. Quila, for that question. And so our next student today is Nihan Keskenturk, who interned with the Office of California State Governor Gavin Newsom's office.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nihan Keskenturk, and my study is about educational attainment disparities among English language learners. California has the highest K through 12 English learner population in the country, while statewide graduation rates are 85%. This is 67% for English learners. Not graduating from secondary schooling could be detrimental to the life success of individuals. So why is it that the rates of graduation for English learners in California are so low? According to my hypothesis, the higher the percentage of English learners in a secondary school, the lower the graduation rates will be for both English language learners in that school and for the general student population. If my hypothesis is correct, this study could be used to examine variables such as negative and unintentional impacts of national, state, and district-wide policies that affect English learners, and to furthermore find ways to approach teaching English learners in a manner that will set them up for success and not failure. My findings based on data gathered from 97 public LAUSD high schools during the 2018 to 2019 academic school year, as shown in figure 1, show a strong correlation between English language learner percentages and graduation rates for English learners in that school. And as seen in figure 2, a very strong correlation between percent of English learners and overall graduation rates in that school. Results from this research suggest the more English language learners there are in a school, the lower graduation rates will be. To handle this problem, policymakers could consider allocating more funding for teacher compensation in schools with greater percentages of English learners, and policies mandating English learner coordinators in schools with larger percentages of English language learners could be enacted to address this issue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Nihan, for that great presentation. If there's a question from the internship host site. Yes, so Office of Governor Gavin Newsom's office. All right,
Sorry. Sorry. Hi, this is Ellie. I am Nihan's internship coordinator. She's been great on our scheduling team. I'm curious about your policy prescription for paying teachers more. What about higher teacher salary might help English language learners do better?
Thank you, Ellie, for the question. So with English language, with schools with higher percentage of English language learners, and because of the impact standardized testing has on high schools, I believe that standardized testing does not possibly capture the correct level that English language learners are at, and this might show the school with higher percentage of English language learners to have lower average academic success, which might not attract more or better teachers to those schools. And so allocating more money or more funding for teacher compensation with higher percentage of English language learners could possibly attract these better teachers that would be able to be better at serving the needs of the English language learners and to help them catch up with their peers. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Ellie, for hosting Nihan and for that question. And thank you, Nihan, for that great presentation and responding to the question. So our next student is Christian Shellhouse today, and he interned with the Office of California State Governor Gavin Newsom's office.
Morning, are you able to see my poster?
Yes, Christian looks great.
All right. Good morning. As Cindy said, my name is Christian Shellhouse. I'm an undergraduate at UCLA, and today I'd like to talk a little bit about dual enrollment. Not receiving a high school diploma can have significant effects later in life, including doubling the likelihood of poverty, worse healthcare outcomes, and reduced life expectancy compared to just simply having a high school diploma. However, about 15.5% of California high school students in 2022 did not graduate from high school within 4 years of entry. That to be said that they didn't obtain a high school diploma. I suggest that dual enrollment may be a solution to this problem. Research indicates that dual enrollment participation may improve high school graduation rates. So I suggest that high school campuses with dual enrollment programs may have significantly higher graduation rates compared to schools that do not offer on-campus dual enrollment. 1,006 California high schools were sorted by whether or not they offered on-campus dual enrollment. Year-over-year changes in four-year graduation rates accessed from the California Department of Education website were aggregated by assignment group and then compared to one another with a special focus on 2016, as you can see on the chart, when AB 288 permitted the creation of dual enrollment programs. High schools which offered on-campus dual enrollment demonstrated better graduation rates since 2012 compared to those campuses which did not. The changes in graduation rates were not significantly different between the two groups. While further research is needed to confirm the relationship and demonstrate strength, and also to understand why there is not yet a significant effect demonstrated from the passage of AB 288, I would recommend the state further invest in researching this relationship and how dual enrollment programs can be improved to see more equitable outcomes from the programs. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you so much, Christian, for that great presentation. And there is a question from your internship host site office, Jasmine Valley.
Hi, Christian. Just want to say you were a wonderful intern. We were so happy to be able to host you. I do have a question. Were there any limitations you encountered during your research process? And if so, what were they?
Yes, so probably the strongest limitation I would say was with the assignment groups. So as you're aware, AB 288 is a rather recent bill, 5-6 years. And schools did not immediately introduce their dual enrollment programs. It's been more of a staggered situation where schools in the dual enrollment assignment group could have introduced their programs anywhere between 2017 and 2022. So I believe, if anything, my research is underreporting any significant differences in dual enrollment programs on graduation rates. And I would be interested in seeing what would happen if you disaggregate that further.
Great, thank you so much, Jasmine, for hosting Christian and for that great question. And thank you, Christian, for this great presentation and responding to the question. And so our next student today is Sabrina Estrada. And Sabrina interned with the Office of California Assemblymember Kevin McCarty.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yes, looks great, Sabrina.
Okay. Hello, my name is Sabrina Estrada, and I'm a political science student at UC Davis, and my project focuses on the alarming rate of recidivism in the United States. The Bureau of Justice Statistics has recorded as high as an 82% rearrest rate of studied formerly incarcerated individuals within just 10 years of their release. And while many routes have been explored in an attempt to reduce these alarming rates, I would like to focus on whether inmate education is a worthwhile tool. I hypothesize that states with a greater number of higher education prison programs will record a lower statewide recidivism rate. My research studies 2018 data of all 50 US states, each with various forms of state prison education programs, and compares their statewide recidivism rates. Data on each state's recidivism rate were self-reported based on individual states' definition of recidivism, while data on higher education prison programs came from the Alliance of Higher Education and Prisons. With each state serving vastly different prison populations, I calculated each state's number of higher education prison programs per every 50,000 inmates served. I found no correlation, which implies that higher education prison programs may have no effect on statewide recidivism rates, but future research is necessary to examine the accessibility of higher education programs in prisons across the United States and their effectiveness. However, I found a lack of a common definition of recidivism to hinder my ability to equally compare each state's self-reported rate. These definitions varied widely from years after release studied to what is considered a reoffense. I believe future research and policy can work towards creating a single definition of recidivism for a more comparative study. Additionally, since nearly 40% of state prison inmates have not obtained a high school diploma or GED, I believe future research should focus on the effect education programs at that level has on rates of recidivism. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Sabrina, for that great presentation. And if there's a question from the internship host site office. All right, and then if not, over to our academic team. All right, Paige.
Thank you for this presentation, Sabrina. I was hoping you could talk to us about the quality of higher ed prison programs that you encountered. How do they vary across the states? Are these more vocational programs? Are they liberal arts programs? Can you kind of speak to us about that?
Yeah, so the data that I was able to find didn't really specify each individual program. However, the data I found did have some qualifying factors in order to consider it a higher education prison program. For instance, the people who were participating, the inmates had to have had a high school diploma or GED in order to participate. It had to be affiliated with an official school. So university or college had to have sponsored the program itself. So these are very difficult factors for really any prison inmate to sort of go through. So it did kind of limit the amount of programs that I could study.
Great, thank you so much, Sabrina, for your great presentation and the response to the question. Thank you, Paige, for the question.
Thank you.
And so our next student today is Mario Sanchez, who interned with the Office of Sacramento City Council Member Rick Jennings' office.
Good morning, everyone. Can you guys see it? My poster?
Yep, yep.
All right. Oh, my camera is freaking out. Hold on. All right, sorry about that. Good morning. My name is Mario Sanchez. I'm an undergrad poli-sci student from UC Santa Barbara, and I will be talking about special education programs in high schools and how they impact children on a spectrum post high school. So to start off with, as of 2021, 1 in every 44 students has been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. This poses a huge problem for teachers who are not prepared to interact with students on the spectrum and accommodate them throughout high school and prepare them for their future careers and college experiences. In a study done by the National Center of Special Education Research, students who came from households with an income of $50,000 a year or more did much better academically than students from lower income backgrounds, which demonstrates the academic gap between incomes. More importantly, this demonstrates that the more resources and attention students receive, the more academically successful they become and socially successful they become in high school and beyond. Because of this, I hypothesize that the higher the access to special education programs a student receives, the higher the graduation and employment rates when they graduate. For my research, my independent variable was the availability of special education programs within certain high schools across California. My dependent, however, was either their college acceptance rates or their employment rates after high school. For my research, I went across California. I went across 10 counties of California in order to see the disparities, in order to see how these programs affected these students. And what I found was every high school that had an option for a special education program had at least a 55% graduation rate, college acceptance rate, and employment rate. This means that there is, in fact, a positive relationship between special education programs and success academically and income-wise beyond high school. Because of this research, I would recommend further research-wise to look into the allocation of these resources, especially since there's students who are on different levels of the spectrum. There's children with severe autism, there's children with light autism. How does income affect each of those levels, and how much attention and resources will each of those students need in order to better their future? Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Mario, for that great presentation. And there's a question from the internship host site. So Henry Atkinson.
Hi, Mario. Question. So in your analyses, where was it? There it is. Demonstrating the need for larger access to quality programs for low-income students. So what I noticed is that in the rest of the study, there didn't seem to be any differentiation of quality or measure of quality of the programs, just a measure of whether programs existed and whether individual students were enrolled in said programs. What do you think would be a way to measure actual quality of those programs? And do you think you would see more of a positive correlation between future student success and the amount of quality that their program reaches?
Yeah, definitely. Great question. If I were to do a deeper, in-depth analysis and had more time to work on it, I would definitely look at the different demographics of each county and their income levels. Like, for example, I think one county in LA, I believe, I don't know if it's around here. They were from a low income background, and their success rates or graduations weren't as high. So you could definitely see that how different income and demographic levels affect the graduation rates, because people from that area may be more low income. They may not have access to behavioral therapists, access to social therapists, which definitely plays a part academically in school and at the house. So I would definitely go back, do probably a demographic map, and see how that impacts their success in school. If I had more time.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Mario, for a great presentation and for responding to that question. And thank you, Henry, for hosting Mario this term and for that great question. So our next student today that will be presenting is Cameron Zogi, who interned with the Sacramento Metro Chamber of Commerce.
All right, well, let me go get my PowerPoint up. Okay, 1 second. Where did the Zoom go? Oh, here it is. Okay. This is the right one. Okay. Can you guys see it fine?
Yes, looks great. Thank you.
Great. Good morning, everyone. My name is Cameron Zogi, and I'm a student from UC Davis. One of the major struggles that we face in contemporary America is that of systematic inequities that are often based upon racial lines. This major issue is what I decided to look at. Today, we will explore the question of if degree attainment based on race affects overall income for Latino Californians when compared to white Californians. My belief is that level of education does in fact affect overall income for Latinos when compared to whites. My research gathered and compared data on the income levels and degree attainment of Latinos and whites of 43 Californian counties. The purpose was to demonstrate if degree attainment is based on race in California, as well as if this correlates to one's income level. In this research, the independent variable is the ratio between white and Latino bachelor's degree attainment by county, and the dependent variable is how degree attainment influences one's income. The data that I used for the study came from the Census's American Community Survey for income levels, and the data on degree attainment came from the PPIC. The point of this study was to measure the educational attainment gap between Latinos and whites, and how this correlates to a higher income for whites. As seen in Figure 2, my findings determined that there seems to be a relationship between the disparity in higher degree attainment and the higher incomes of whites when compared to Latinos in California. The trend line shows that there is somewhat of a correlation between degree attainment for whites and their increased incomes. If this trend continues and as jobs continue to require a higher level of education, Latino Californians are likely to find themselves at even further disadvantage than they currently are. We need to take action to curb this trend. Thank you for listening.
Great. Thank you so much, Cameron, for that great presentation. And then there is a question from your internship host side. So Monica Griffiths.
Good job as always, Cameron. I just wanted to see if you thought, if you expanded this research a little bit more and you looked at different ethnic groups, if you believed that same correlation would exist when comparing to the higher degree attainment.
Yeah, thank you, Monica. Yeah, thanks for coming too. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely do, because unfortunately I didn't have enough time to look at every single racial group and but based on what I saw, I 100% they were with African Americans and other groups that are in a similar demographic, there would definitely be a sort of similar trajectory and trend between whites and any other group, most any other group, except maybe Asian Americans.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Monica, for that great question and for hosting Cameron this term. And thank you, Cameron, for a great presentation and also responding to the question. And so now I'm going to go ahead and give Brooke just a second here to go ahead and stop the recording.